During apartheid, being a journalist in South Africa was one of the most dangerous professions you could choose. Reporters were arrested, harassed, tortured, and sometimes even killed by the apartheid security forces. Why? Because the regime understood one simple truth: information is power. Journalists were exposing the brutality of the system, the detentions without trial, the killings of activists, and the daily humiliation of black South Africans. The apartheid regime hated the media because that truth was embarrassing them in front of the entire world. But when democracy arrived in 1994, we were promised something different. We were promised freedom of speech and freedom of the press, protected by the Constitution. For more than 3 decades, South African journalists have reported on sensitive political issues without fear or interference from the state. That independence is neither a favor or a privilege. It's the backbone of our democracy. Now we are beginning to see something extremely worrying. Ramaphosa may not be sending the police to arrest journalists like the apartheid government did, but he appears to be using a far more subtle strategy: control through influence. And the easiest place to do that is the SABC because it's owned by the state. We first got a glimpse of this mentality when Ramaphosa's recorded phone conversation surfaced, where he openly complained about SABC criticizing the ANC government and suggested that it must be closely monitored and brought to a halt. Those are not the words of a leader comfortable with media scrutiny. Those are the words of someone who wants control. Then we started seeing the pressure build. Clement Manyathela is one of the most respected journalists in South Africa, and he's the host of Face of the Nation, a political program known for asking tough questions, exactly what journalism is meant to do. When Manyathela asked Ramaphosa uncomfortable questions about the Phala scandal in his interview, the reaction from the presidency was immediate. The minister in the presidency, Kumbutso Nchabeni, reportedly became furious about that interview, and since then, her relationship with Manyathela has been strained. And now, suddenly, the SABC has decided to cancel Face of the Nation, a show that is actually leading in ratings. Let's be honest with ourselves. When a popular program is cancelled after politicians complain about tough questions, it raises very serious concerns. This is not really about programming. It's about silencing criticism. That's exactly how the erosion of democracy begins. Not with tanks in the streets, not with soldiers at the studio. It begins quietly by capturing institutions, by pressurizing journalists, and by removing voices that make those in power uncomfortable. If the ANC is bold enough to silence journalists on national television simply for asking difficult questions, then we must ask ourselves, what comes next? Today is one program. Tomorrow it could be an entire newsroom, then podcasts and social media platforms. And eventually it becomes a country where journalists and independent state critics are too afraid to speak. South Africans didn't fight for freedom just to replace one system of control with another. The media doesn't exist to praise politicians. It exists to hold them accountable. And if our leaders cannot handle tough questions, then perhaps they shouldn't be in leadership. As citizens, we must reject any attempt to capture the media. We must defend the independence of journalists with everything we have. Because the moment the media is silenced, the people are next.